Alright guys, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for watching. And we're going to be tackling a lot of lore today. We're going to be killing Daud, we're just going to be having a lot of fun. We're actually going to go through the level once normal, and then we're going to go through it another time without a sword. And that's so that we can do something very, very special in the next episode. That's going to be a little bit of fun there. But the main influence is the lore, so thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with it this long. I know it's been a lot of lead time between the episodes, and I've been learning a lot, and I do apologize for that. But we're back, and that's what really matters. Alright, fake accents ahoy, and here we go. So we start off in the Flooded District, and what the Flooded District used to be is it used to be the Redshore Financial District. And that's where Dunwall's Chamber of Commerce was, that's where the Greaves Refinery still is, and we'll see that later on in the level. But this used to be an incredibly prosperous area of Dunwall until the gates broke and it flooded. Now the City Watch just pours in plague victims, there's hagfish and rats just breeding all over the place, and it's just not a place you want to be. It's completely falling apart and just absolutely devastated because of the plague, which brings a lot of thoughts about, one, it's sort of poetic that this very prosperous district would become then the basically base of the person who kills the empress who made it prosperous, and the person who hired her assassin, who is now living in the Flooded District, which was the prosperous part of Dunwall, is the guy who brought the plague in the first place, Hiram Burrows. So you got Hiram, he hires Daud to kill the empress, and then Daud goes and lives in the Flooded District. He was living there before, but Hiram kind of brought the plague, and, well, that gave Daud his hideout, so those two have been in cohorts for a long time, if not on purpose. But yeah, it's an interesting couple connections to make, and, is there actually anything there? I'm not sure, but to me it seems very poetic, that it would be like that. But the other poetic thing is that it's on Renhaven River, which is where Daud's journey began with us. So he came, killed the Empress in front of us, and now we're back on Renhaven River, in a place that used to be the most prosperous place in Dunwall. And, well, maybe not the most prosperous, but one of the most prosperous. And we're going to end his life. And on top of that, Daud's actually living in the Chamber of Commerce. Just small side note. Just seems a little too good to be true. But, so, Daud's made his hideout there, and so Daud runs the Whalers. And who the Whalers are, they're essentially assassins, right? Who we're dealing with throughout the level, that's the Whalers. That's what they're known as. Why are they called the Whalers? It's mainly because they wear these industrial gas masks, and that are used in the refining of whale oil. Why do they wear the masks? Probably to, one, protect their identity, and two, to protect themselves from the rat plague, although Daud doesn't wear one, so who knows if that's true, but they do live in a really kind of crappy place where there's a ton of plague and a ton of garbage, so, it could serve dual purposes. And Daud's met the outsider, so perhaps that's why he doesn't need to wear one. But yeah, so the Whalers, They can use supernatural abilities like Blink. And the reason they can do this is because one of Daud's powers, one of his abilities that he was given by the Outsider, is he can give a portion of his abilities to those under his command. So they're actually getting that Blink ability from Daud. Now, not all the Whalers can actually inherit the abilities from Daud, which is really interesting if you think about it. And there's three different classes. There's the ones that have the dark gray suits, there's the ones that have the dark blue suits, and then there's Billy Lurk and Daud himself who wear the dark red suits. And so you got the novice assassins in the gray, you've got the Master Assassins in the dark blue, and then you've got the Super Master Assassins in the dark red. And I actually haven't been able to test if the ones in the grey suits can even use the abilities. But it's interesting to note that Daud doesn't really have control over who can and who can't inherit these abilities. And it gives me the impression that perhaps it's almost as if the outsider's working through Daud, and Daud doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just initiating the process and hoping that it works. And really the outsider is the one controlling him in some way, not like physically controlling him or like controlling what he does, but kind of pushing him in directions. Because if the outsider is the one who's deciding who gets the abilities and who doesn't, and Daud's just initiating the process, then it gives a whole new kind of light to kind of what's going on. But who knows if that's actually what's going on, or if it's something completely different. But that's pretty much it for the Whalers. You know, they have their supernatural abilities are Blink, Pull, and Transversals, so those are the 3 moves that they'll use on you. They use wrist bows and swords, just like Corvo. They're not immune to poison, which is ridiculous. They actually can be poisoned by the river krusts, or whatever they are, that shoot the poison balls. They're very annoying, but yeah, they can be poisoned by those as well, despite them wearing gas masks. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the Whalers. Let's go back and talk about Greaves Refinery for a little bit. So, essentially, Greaves Refinery, where it is that's the area that Daud hides your equipment. So if you decide to go and get your equipment, which I didn't do, I actually just skipped the whole thing, so we actually won't be seeing it in the video, but if you do decide to go and get your equipment, that's where you'll be going. Now, it was owned by Ebenezer Greaves, and it was on the Rudshore waterfront, essentially. Now it's overrun with weepers, and just, just like the rest of the flooded district, why not? But it's where they made Greaves lightning oil, which was an extremely profitable business. And so at one point they were employing over 300 workers. This is not including the children who were being ground up in the gears and slaughtered mercilessly doing minor tasks. Because you can't run whale oil refineries without the death of small children. It's just not possible. So that had to happen as well. But once, the flooded district flooded, end of the refinery, and you hear the propaganda officer talking about a shortage of whale oil, refined whale oil. That could be due to, this, maybe not, who knows. But that leaves it to kind of the Rothwild Slaughterhouse to do it itself, because originally Rothwild Slaughterhouse just pumped it in to Greaves Refinery, and then bam, you got your refined whale oil, and everyone's happy. But afterwards, that does not work quite as well. So, that's kind of the situation that they're in. Another little interesting side note about Daud's hideout, before we move on to Daud himself. It's located on Jessamine Boulevard, so we know he is in the Chamber of Commerce building, but he's living on the boulevard named after the empress that he kills. And not only that, but there's a statue of her right in front of the building, which to me just screams irony, but who knows? Come on. That has to be just kind of a symbolism of some sort, right? It's gotta be. Anyways. It's a lot of patterns that you can notice, but you can't really prove much, but I think it's fairly obvious. Anyways, so let's move on to Daud. Alright, so Daud is the Knife of Dunwall, as, anyone who's played the DLC might know. He's also the leader of the Whalers, as we've know already. He's also the person who murdered Jessamine and kidnapped Emily. And he's kind of not a dick, but yeah. Sure, he killed the empress, but he felt guilty about it, right? Anyways, so I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning. So we don't know much about Daud's childhood from what I can see. We know his mother came from the Pandician continent, or at least was rumored to have. And we know that he hails from Circanos, probably pronouncing that horribly wrong, but same place as you, essentially. And that his mother was thought to have been marked by the outsider, but in fact, she was just really good with hallucinogens. So, yeah. But Pandicia, that's where the rat plague came from. That's where all this magic seems to be coming from. So, interesting things afoot already. Now, the heart reveals that at some point during his childhood, his natural abilities caught the attention of some mysterious actor, which eventually led to his abduction. And that seems to have brought him to Dunwall. And in the book, Sightings of Daud, Rumors and Sightings of Daud, they kind of say he was like moving among the shopkeepers and city watch officers of Dunwall like a reaper through wheat. The book then suggests that he traveled to different isles looking for these outsider shrines, which he tells you in the game that he did, so we know that is true. It also details that he spent, a winter at the Academy of Natural Philosophy, even though there's not much on that at all, so who knows. But essentially, after visiting these different shrines, maybe he was looking for kind of a remnant of his mother, since she was rumored to be this witch, even though she, actually was just really good with hallucinogens, that he became infamous as an assassin, feared not only for his skill, but also for his magical powers. Because, who doesn't fear magical powers? But essentially what seems to have happened is, so he traveled around to these different outsider shrines, and eventually the outsider showed up, and he gave him the mark of the outsider, either because he had pity on the boy, because he was searching for his mother, or something else. We don't really know, but either way, the outsider didn't treat him like Sokolov. He favored him, and he gave him these abilities. So Daud went and then used those to establish the Whalers as kind of an assassins for the elite of Dunwall. So he went back to Dunwall with his magic and established the Whalers as assassins for the elite of Dunwall. And that's when he met Billy Lurk, who then became his second in command. And she was a street urchin, with an affinity for trade. And eventually, he caught the attention of Hiram Burroughs, who made use of his service a number of times, because Hiram was, of course, at this point, the royal spy master. Eventually, he hired Daud to assassinate the empress, and that's where we kind of come in. That's where we know from that point. Now, despite the outsider's initial favor of Daud, a rift developed between them sometime before the events of the game. So, at some point, the outsider himself notes that he lost interest in Daud prior to the assassination of the empress. And this correlates well to kind of the Knife of Dunwall DLC, because that DLC is completely about Daud and kind of his perspective on the story. So it begins, right after he's killed the empress, and he's racked horribly with grief because he regrets doing that action. And the outsider appears to him one last time. Keep in mind, at this point, he's fallen out of the outsider's favor. And the outsider says, "I'll give you one last gift," and he gives him a name. And that name is Delilah. So throughout the DLC, you're searching for kind of what that means. And so, you get a bunch of different missions, and stuff goes crazy. And what you'd expect, you meet Billy and all sorts of things. And it kind of culminates in this kind of epilogue where you realize that Billy has betrayed you after you push back these overseer forces that have been attacking you. And so at the end of the DLC, you get to choose whether you let Billy live or die, and then that's kind of where the Briggamore Witches DLC starts. And that is about Delilah, because Delilah is the leader of the Briggamore Witches. And he realizes that her end goal is to take over Emily Kaldwin's body and kind of rule as the empress from within Emily Kaldwin, or having control of her. So Daud follows Delilah into the void, and he kills her in the middle of this ritual to take over Emily's body, and saves the child that he once abducted. So, there's a bunch of poetic kind of things going on, and if you win in low chaos for that DLC, you're seeing kind of Corvo spares you during the epilogue, and you're seen kind of resting your sword at Jessamine Kaldwin's grave, kind of saying, it's over. This kind of story has completed. Daud's no longer this assassin. He's put away his sword, and he's saved the offspring of the woman that he killed. And so he's found peace. And I think that's what Daud's whole story is about, is it's him wrestling with this grief that he has and trying to find peace. And the outsider gives him the gift of Delilah, knowing that through it, he'll find peace. He'll find forgiveness of himself. But, that's just my theory. But, it's all very poetic. And so, if you're in high chaos level, Corvo kills you. And, that's the end of Daud's story. And it's a very interesting and amazing story, I think. And actually, I enjoyed it quite a lot. But, we're almost at the end here. So we're going to talk about the bonus stuff that you can do in the level, and kind of the characters surrounding that, and that should finish us up. Because we're almost through the second playthrough. It's been going for about 20 minutes now, and I don't know if you guys are still watching, or if you're bored out of your mind, though I hope not, because Daud's story has always been one of my favorites. So hopefully it's good. You guys are having a great time. That's what we're hoping for. Anyways, on to kind of wrap this up. Alright, so there's two main side objectives that you can kind of partake in. And one is creating a safe haven. And essentially, the two characters of note here are Mace Brimsley and his wife, Mrs. Brimsley, who you heard about during Lady Boyle's last party. And so essentially, what you're doing is you're taking down some City Watch guards, disable some arc pylons, and basically save them. But the interesting thing about the Brimsleys is that they're mentioned quite a lot throughout the story. So we're going to ignore Blake for a little bit. He's kind of the leader of the group. But the Brimsleys are far more interesting, because they're alluded to in Lady Boyle's last ball. You can also, during the mission House of Pleasure, if you do the art dealer's kind of mission, he confesses to you that he once worshipped the outsider at the Brimsleys' house. And they're pretty nice people, because essentially what happened was Mrs. Brimsley caught the plague, and then Mace, her husband, decided to feign death so that he could be transported to the flooded district with her, because they mistook him for dead. So they just dumped both of their bodies there, and that's how they end up where they are. And so in low chaos, you can do this mission. In high chaos, they're just weepers, and you can see them along with Blake. So yeah, they're fairly strange people, Lydia Boyle once mentioned that she snuck into a Brimsley's party, and her experience was very strange. So they obviously worship the outsider. They're a little strange, but they love each other. So, there they go. They were also robbed by the Bottle Street gangsters. Mentioned that they robbed the Brimsleys once. So they seem to just have horrible things happen to them. But yeah, who knows? Maybe that's what happens when you worship the outsider. You either get magical powers, or you end up dead, or having to feign death, and with the plague. But that basically does it for this episode, so I hope you guys have enjoyed everything. Next episode, we'll be doing something very special, since we don't have a weapon still. That's your only clue, and we'll leave it at that. So thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. Helps me out a lot. Don't have to, obviously, only if you want to. Because Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. You're not really going to watch the videos anyways if you don't actually want to subscribe. So, anyways, long ending. I'll see you guys later.